Lee Tiemann stood in the massive hall with 11 other cadets. The walls stretched high above them, made of some strange metal that seemed to glow with its own light. He had never seen anything like it back on Earth. The other cadets around him looked nothing like humans. Some had blue skin, others had 4 arms, and one looked like it was made of living crystal dot. This was the Galactic Military Academy, floating in space near a distant star. Tiemann had worked his whole life to get here. He was 22 years old and came from Seoul, but his family had moved to the mountains when he was young. His grandmother Zim Sunbak had raised him there, teaching him old ways that most people had forgotten. The crystal being stepped forward. Its voice sounded like wind chimes when it spoke. I am Examiner Zix9 of the Velfari people. You 12 are the best cadets from your worlds. Today you face the final test. Tiemann looked at the other cadets. There was a tall creature with purple skin that kept touching its head like it was listening to something no one else could hear. That had to be one of the mind readers he had heard about. Another cadet had skin that looked like metal and tiny lights blinking on its arms. It was probably from a world where everyone was part machine. The test is simple, Zix9 continued. You must survive against a Gravik beast. These creatures are the most dangerous predators in known space. They are fast, strong, and very smart. One of the alien cadets made a sound like grinding metal. Tiemann thought it might be asking a question. Zix9 seemed to understand. No, you may not use energy weapons, no plasma guns, no laser swords, no force shields. No advanced technology at all. You get basic clothes, water, and simple tools only. The hall erupted in strange sounds. Tiemann heard clicking, whistling, and what sounded like static electricity. The aliens were clearly upset. Most of them came from worlds where they always used high-tech weapons. Without their technology, they seemed lost, but Tiemann felt calm. His grandmother had taught him to hunt with rocks and sticks. His grandfather, Hwang Dong-soo, had told him stories about the old days when Korean warriors had to fight with whatever they could find. Technology breaks, his grandmother always said, but a smart mind and strong hands never fail. Zix9 raised one crystalline arm and the noise stopped. You have 1 hour to prepare once you enter the arena. Then the beast will be released. The test ends when the beast is dead or you are dead. A screen appeared in the air above them. It showed a large dome filled with different kinds of land. There were forests with tall trees, rocky hills, a small lake, and open grass fields. Caves dotted the hillsides like dark mouths. This is your arena, Zix9 explained. Each of you gets an identical space. The viewing gallery will be open so others can watch and learn. Tiemann studied the screen carefully. He saw narrow paths between rocks that could trap something large. The caves might echo sounds in useful ways. The lake was shallow on one side, but deep on the other. His mind started working on plans. The metal-skinned cadet was making rapid beeping sounds and moving its hands quickly. It was probably trying to figure out how to build some kind of device. The mind reader was standing very still with its eyes closed, maybe trying to sense the beast somehow. What kind of beast is it exactly? Tiemann asked in the common galactic language he had learned. Zix9 turned toward him. Gravik beasts are 6 meters tall and weigh as much as a small vehicle. Their hide can stop most projectiles. They have excellent hearing and smell. Their claws can cut through metal. They are intelligent hunters that learn from their prey's behavior. Several cadets made worried sounds. This was much worse than they had expected. How do you kill something that big and smart with just rocks and sticks? But Tiemann smiled slightly. Big meant slow in some ways. Good hearing could be used against it. Intelligence was helpful, but it could also make a creature overthink things. His grandmother had taught him that every strength could become a weakness if you were clever enough. Transport begins now, Zix9 announced. A beam of light surrounded each cadet. Tiemann felt a strange tingling sensation, then found himself standing in the arena he had seen on the screen. The air smelled like earth and growing things. Bird-like creatures flew between the trees, and he could hear water moving somewhere nearby. He was alone now. Through the clear dome walls, he could see other arenas with the other cadets. In one, the metal-skinned alien was gathering electronic components from its basic equipment. In another, a large creature with too many arms was trying to sharpen sticks with its claws. Timon started walking, but not randomly. He moved in a pattern his grandmother had taught him, spiraling outward from the center while paying attention to everything. The ground was firm here, but softer there. These rocks were loose, those were solid. The wind blew from the east most of the time. He picked up stones as he walked, testing their weight and balance. Good throwing stones were not too heavy and not too light. They needed to fit his hand properly. His grandmother had made him practice with stones every day until he could hit a target the size of his fist from 30 meters away, near the rocky hills. He found what he was looking for: loose rocks balanced on top of larger ones. With the right push, they would fall, and they were heavy enough to hurt something big. He started moving the smaller stones into better positions. The caves were even more interesting. He threw a small rock into one and listened to the echo. Then he tried another cave. Each one sounded different. Some made the sound bounce back quickly, others took a long time. A few caves seemed to make sounds louder. In one cave, he clapped his hands and heard the sound repeat 7 times before fading away. Perfect. By the lake, he found clay mud that would stick to things. He also found sharp stones that had been broken by water over time. These would be useful. 30 minutes had passed when he started building his first trap. His grandfather had told him about old Korean hunters who could catch tigers with nothing but rope and stakes. Timon did not have rope, but he had something better. He had knowledge. The trap was simple but clever. A heavy rock balanced on a fallen tree branch, held in place by a small stick. When something pushed the stick, the rock would fall. But the trick was placing it where the beast would have to step to chase him. He was placing his 5th trap when he heard a deep roar echo across all the arenas. In the distance, he could see that one of the Gravak beasts had been released early. That cadet had failed already. Timon felt his heart beat faster, but his hands stayed steady. Fear was natural, his grandmother had taught him. The smart hunter used fear to stay alert but did not let it control his actions. 10 minutes left. He had work to finish. The warning buzzer echoed through all 12 arenas. Timon looked up from where he was gathering his final supplies. Through the transparent walls he could see into the arena next to his. Park Ji-won was there, another human from Earth. She was taller than him and had always been his biggest competition at the academy. Ji-won caught his eye and nodded once. It was a warrior's greeting, something they had learned in their Earth military training. She was building what looked like a lean-to shelter near some thick trees. Her approach was different from his, but Timon could see the intelligence behind it. In the arena on his other side, Cho Minho was taking apart his basic equipment. The young man from Busan was trying to build some kind of electronic device. Timon shook his head. Minho was brilliant with technology, but this test was about going backward, not forward. 5 minutes until beast release, the voice of Zix9 announced from speakers hidden in the dome walls. Timon made his way to his chosen starting position. It was a rocky outcrop that gave him a good view of most of the arena while providing multiple escape routes. His grandmother had always said that a good hunter never stayed in one place too long, but always knew where to run. Around his neck, he wore a simple cord he had made from plant fibers. Attached to it were 12 specially chosen stones. They were smooth, round, and exactly the right size for his sling. He had spent 20 minutes making the sling from strips of his spare clothing, just like his grandmother had taught him. The viewing gallery above the arenas was filling with aliens. Timon could see them pointing and making sounds to each other. Most were probably betting on which cadets would survive. Humans were not favored to win. Everyone knew they were one of the weakest species physically, but strength was not everything. His great-uncle Nam Jiho had been a small man, but he could catch fish with his bare hands and track deer through snow. The mind is the greatest weapon. He used to say everything else is just tools. A new sound joined the alien chatter above. Timon looked up to see more important-looking beings entering the gallery. One was definitely military, based on the way others moved around it. Another seemed to be some kind of scientist, carrying devices that were probably for recording the test. 60 seconds, Zixnite announced. Tiemann closed his eyes and took 3 deep breaths. This was something his Aunt Bei Jiang had taught him. She was an engineer who worked with sound, and she said the brain worked better when it had enough oxygen. He could almost hear her voice now. Sound moves in waves, Tiemann. If you understand the waves, you can control them. 30 seconds. In the arena across from his, one of the alien cadets was trying to climb a tree. It had 4 arms and seemed good at climbing, but Tiemann thought it was making a mistake. Height could be good for seeing, but it also meant being trapped if the beast could climb too. 10 seconds. Tiemann opened his eyes and loosened the sling at his belt. His hand found the familiar weight of his first throwing stone. Everything his family had taught him over the years came together in his mind like pieces of a puzzle finally fitting into place. Release the beasts! The sound that came from the entrance tunnel was like nothing Tiemann had ever heard. It was part roar, part scream, and part something else that made his bones vibrate. The Gravak beast stepped into the light and Tiemann felt his breath catch. It was massive. The descriptions had not prepared him for the reality. 6 meters tall meant it could look over most of the trees. Its hide was dark gray and looked thicker than armor. The claws on its hands were as long as Tiemann's forearms and curved like swords, but what struck him most was the intelligence in its eyes. This was not a simple animal that attacked without thinking. It moved its head slowly from side to side, studying the arena. Its nostrils flared as it tested the air for scents. When it opened its mouth, Tiemann could see rows of teeth designed for tearing and crushing. The beast began to move, and Tiemann was surprised by how quietly it stepped. Something that large should make more noise, but it moved like a cat hunting mice. It was checking the edges of the arena first, learning the layout just like Tiemann had done. Through the arena walls, Tiemann saw flashes of movement in other domes. Not all the cadets were being as careful as he was. In one arena, he glimpsed an alien running in panic. That would not end well. Running from a predator without a plan just triggered its hunting instincts. The beast in Tiemann's arena had finished its inspection of the walls. Now it was moving toward the center, where Tiemann had deliberately left obvious signs of his presence. Broken branches, disturbed earth, and his scent trail led toward the lake area. Tiemann had learned from his grandfather that the best way to control a predator was to make it think it was hunting you while you were actually hunting it. The key was patience and understanding what the creature wanted. What it wanted was to find him and kill him, so he would let it find him. But where and when he chose, the beast reached the first signs of his trail and stopped. Its massive head lowered to sniff the ground. Tiemann could see its nostrils working, gathering information. Then it looked up and stared directly at the rocks where Tiemann was hiding. For a moment, their eyes met across the arena. Tiemann felt the force of that alien intelligence studying him. The beast was evaluating him just as he was evaluating it. This was no mindless monster. This was a thinking predator that had probably killed many other creatures, but Tiemann had advantages the beast did not know about. He had prepared the battlefield. He knew where every loose rock and hidden trap waited. Most importantly, he understood something the beast did not expect. Humans were not just another prey species. They were persistence hunters who had chased mammoths across frozen plains and tracked elephants through African grasslands. They were the species that had looked at every other predator on their world and decided to compete with them using nothing but intelligence and endurance. The beast took a step toward his hiding place, then another. It was being careful, but it was coming. Tiemann slowly moved backward, keeping low behind the rocks. He needed to lead it to the right place at the right time. In the arena next to his, he caught a glimpse of Jawan moving through the trees. She was using the forest differently than he was using the rocks, but he could see the same basic strategy. Make the beast come to you where you are strongest. The beast was 20 meters away now, close enough that Tiemann could hear its breathing, close enough to see the scars on its hide from previous battles. This creature had fought before and won, but it had never fought a human. Tiemann picked up a small stone and threw it carefully. Not at the beast, but at a spot near the lake that would make exactly the right sound. The stone hit with a clear splash. The beast's head snapped toward the sound. It paused for a moment, then began moving toward the water. It was following the trail Teeman had left, just as planned. Time for the real hunt to begin. The beast moved toward the lake with careful steps. Teeman watched from his new position behind a cluster of boulders. He had moved here while the creature was distracted by the sound at the water. This was the most dangerous part of his plan, getting the beast to the right place without being caught. His grandmother, Kim Sunbak, had taught him about patience when he was young. They would sit by mountain streams for hours waiting for fish to swim into their nets. Nature moves slowly. She would say, "The hunter who rushes will go hungry." The beast reached the muddy shore of the lake and stopped. It lowered its massive head to sniff the ground where Teeman had deliberately stepped earlier. He had made sure to press deep footprints into the soft earth, creating a clear trail to follow. In the viewing gallery above, more aliens had arrived. To watch, Teeman could see them pointing at different arenas. Through the transparent walls, he glimpsed chaos in several other domes. One alien cadet was running in circles while its beast chased behind. Another was trying to fight with a pointed stick, but the stick broke against the creature's thick hide. But in Jiwon's arena, something interesting was happening. She had disappeared completely, and her beast was searching through the trees with growing frustration. Teeman smiled slightly. She was using the old Korean hunting technique of becoming invisible by moving like part of the forest itself. His attention snapped back to his own situation. The beast had found his trail and was following it around the edge of the lake. This was exactly what he wanted. The path he had made led directly to his first trap. Teeman's trap was based on something his great-uncle, Nam Jiho, had taught him about catching wild boars. The animals were smart and dangerous, but they could be tricked if you understood their behavior. Like the Gravak beast, boars relied heavily on their sense of smell. The beast stepped carefully along the trail, testing each footprint with its nose. Teeman had made the trail look like he was injured, favoring one leg and moving slowly. Predators always preferred wounded prey because it seemed easier to catch. 20 meters from the trap. 15 meters, 10. The beast paused and raised its head. Something had made it suspicious. Maybe the trail was too obvious, or maybe it sensed danger ahead. Intelligence worked both ways. It helped the beast hunt, but it also made it cautious. And needed to give it a reason to continue forward. He picked up a stone the size of his thumb and threw it carefully. Not at the beast, but into the bush on the far side of the lake. The stone rustled through leaves and splashed into shallow water. The beast's head turned toward the sound. Its body tensed, ready to charge, but it did not move yet. It was listening and thinking, trying to decide if the sound meant prey or danger. Teeman threw another stone, this one smaller, and aimed to land closer to where the beast stood. The tiny splash in the water sounded exactly like a small animal drinking. He had practiced this sound many times while preparing, learning to make stones fall in just the right way. The beast made a sound deep in its throat, something between a growl and a purr. It was excited now, thinking it had found easy prey. It began moving forward again, following the trail toward the trap. 5 meters. 3 meters. 2. The beast stepped directly on the trigger stick. The heavy boulder Teeman had balanced above the path came crashing down. It weighed as much as 3 men and fell from twice the height of the beast. The impact shook the ground and sent up a cloud of dust and debris, but when the dust cleared, the beast was still standing. The boulder had struck its shoulder and knocked it sideways, but the creature's thick hide and strong bones had protected it from serious injury. Dark blue blood seeped from scrapes along its back, but it was far from defeated. What the trap had done was make the beast angry. It threw back its massive head and roared. The sound echoed off the dome walls and made Teeman's ears ring. In the viewing gallery, he saw aliens moving closer to their screens. Suddenly paying more attention to his arena. The beast began searching for him with new intensity. It moved faster now, less careful about following the trail. Its eyes scanned the rocks and trees, looking for any sign of movement. When it found him, Timon knew it would not hesitate to attack, but anger was also a weakness. His grandmother had taught him that angry animals made mistakes. They stopped thinking clearly and started acting on instinct alone. That was exactly what Timon needed. He waited until the beast was looking in the wrong direction, then moved quickly from his hiding place to a new position. This time he went to the rocky hills where he had prepared his acoustic traps. The caves in these hills were perfect for what he needed to do next. His Aunt Bei Jiang had explained to him how sound worked in enclosed spaces. Some shapes made sounds louder, others made them echo and repeat. A few special shapes could even change the direction sound seemed to come from. Timon had tested every cave during his preparation time. He knew exactly what each one would do to his voice and to thrown stones. Now it was time to use that knowledge. The beast was still searching near the lake, moving in angry circles around the triggered trap. Timon cupped his hands around his mouth and made a sound his grandfather had taught him, the call Korean hunters used to confuse deer. The sound bounced off the cave walls and came out changed. Instead of seeming to come from where Timon was hiding, it appeared to originate from 3 different directions at once. The beast stopped moving and turned its head from side to side, trying to locate the source. Timon made the call again, this time from a different cave. The echo pattern was completely different, making it sound like there were multiple creatures moving through the hills. The beast took several steps toward the rocks, then stopped and turned the other way as the echoes confused its hearing. From the gallery above, Timon heard new sounds. The aliens were making excited noises, clicking and whistling to each other. They had expected the test to be over quickly, with either the beast killing the cadet or the cadet hiding until time ran out. None of them had anticipated this kind of tactical approach. Through the arena walls, Timon could see that most of the other tests were indeed over. Several alien cadets lay motionless while their beasts stood over them. Others had managed to find hiding places, but they were trapped there with no way to actually win the test. Only 3 arenas still had active battles. His own, Jiwan's, and surprisingly, one where the 4-armed climber was leading its beast on a chase through the treetops. The aliens were learning that winning required more than just surviving. The beast in Timon's arena had given up trying to locate him by sound alone. It was moving toward the hills in a systematic search pattern, checking each possible hiding place. This was exactly what Timon wanted. The creature was coming to him, which meant he could control where the next part of the fight would happen. He had more traps waiting among the rocks. Different kinds of traps that would work better on an angry, wounded beast. But first, he needed to slow it down and make it even more confused. And picked up a stone the size of his fist and threw it hard against the back wall of a deep cave. The sound was like thunder, amplified and distorted by the cave's shape. The beast jumped at the noise and spun to face what it thought was a threat behind it. While it was turned around, Timon threw 3 smaller stones in quick succession into different caves. Each made a different sound, one high and sharp, one low and rumbling, one that seemed to echo forever. To the beast it must have sounded like an entire pack of creatures surrounding it. The beast was no longer just angry. It was confused and starting to show signs of fear. It kept turning in circles, trying to face threats that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Perfect. A confused predator was much easier to trap than a confident one. Time for the next phase of his plan. The Gravak beast stood in the center of the rocky area, turning slowly in circles. Its massive head swung from side to side as it tried to understand where the sounds were coming from. Dark blue blood still dripped from the wounds on its shoulder, and its breathing had become heavier. Taemin watched from a carefully chosen hiding spot. He was pressed flat against a rock ledge about 15 meters above the beast, completely motionless. His grandmother had taught him this position when he was 8 years old, showing him how to become part of the stone itself. The best hunter is invisible, she had said. Not because he cannot be seen, but because he looks like something that belongs there. The beast was learning that its prey was more dangerous than expected. It had stopped making loud roars and was moving more carefully. But Timon could see that it was also getting tired. The injury from the falling boulder was affecting its balance. and the constant turning to track false sounds was wearing it down. In the viewing gallery, the crowd of aliens had grown larger. Teeman could see important-looking beings in military uniforms taking notes on electronic devices. One alien that looked like a walking tree was gesturing excitedly at different screens, probably comparing the various human approaches. Through the transparent wall, he glimpsed Yuan's arena. She had finally revealed herself and was leading her beast on a long chase through dense forest. But she was not just running randomly. She was using a technique called persistence hunting that humans had perfected on Earth, wear down the prey by making it run until it collapsed from exhaustion. The four-armed climber in another arena was having less success. Its beast had learned to climb trees and was gaining on it quickly. Intelligence meant the creatures could adapt to new situations. Teeman's beast had stopped circling and was now moving in a systematic search pattern through the rocks. It checked each cave entrance and looked behind every boulder. The search brought it closer to where Teeman was hiding with each step. When the beast was directly below his position, Teeman made his move, but not the obvious one. Instead of attacking from above, he dropped a single small stone behind the creature. The tiny sound made it spin around, and in that moment of distraction, Teeman slipped away to a new hiding place. He was now 20 meters away, behind a different set of rocks. The beast spent several minutes searching the area where the stone had fallen, growing more frustrated as it found nothing. Teeman could see the intelligence in its actions, but also the growing confusion. His aunt Bei Jiang had explained to him how important timing was in acoustic engineering. Sound waves had to hit at exactly the right moment to create the effects you wanted. The same principle applied to hunting. Everything depended on perfect timing. The beast was now facing away from him, still searching the wrong area. Teeman cupped his hands and made a different sound, not the hunting call from before, but something new. He whistled a sharp, piercing note that his grandfather had taught him for calling. Across mountain valleys, the sound bounced off multiple cave walls before reaching the beast's ears. To the creature, it seemed to come from deep underground, as if something was tunneling beneath the rocks. The beast looked down at its feet and took several nervous steps backward. While it was distracted by the underground threat that did not exist, Teeman moved again. He was working his way toward the largest cave in the rocky area. This cave was special. It went deep into the hillside and had unusual acoustic properties that would help with the next part of his plan. But first, he needed to convince the beast to follow him there. Teeman picked up a handful of small stones and threw them one at a time into different caves. Each stone made a distinct sound as it bounced off the walls inside. To anyone listening, it sounded like multiple creatures moving through a network of tunnels. The beast's head turned quickly from one sound to another. Its frustration was growing into something that looked almost like panic. This was a predator that was used to being the dominant force in any situation. Having invisible prey that seemed to be everywhere at once was outside its experience. Then Teeman made a mistake. As he reached for another stone, his foot slipped on loose gravel. The small avalanche of pebbles was not loud, but in the relative quiet of the arena, it was enough. The beast's head snapped toward his new hiding place with laser focus. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Teeman was partially visible behind his rock cover, and the beast was staring directly at him. He could see the intelligence in those alien eyes as the creature finally located its real target. The beast made a sound like grinding metal and began moving toward him. Not the careful stalking movements from before, but a purposeful advance. It had found its prey and was no longer interested in games. Teeman had two choices. He could try to slip away again and continue the game of hide and seek, or he could lead the beast where he wanted it to go. The first option was safer, but it would not win the test. Eventually he would make another mistake, and the creature would catch him. The second option was more dangerous, but it was the only way to actually defeat the beast. He chose danger instead of hiding. Teeman stood up so the beast could see him clearly. Then he began walking backward toward the large cave, maintaining eye contact with the creature. This was something his grandfather had taught him about dealing with mountain bears. Sometimes you had to face them directly to show you were not Helpless prey, the beast followed, moving faster now that it had a clear target. Its claws clicked against the rocky ground with each step. Timon could see the muscles bunching under its thick hide as it prepared to charge. 20 meters to the cave entrance. 15. 10. The beast stopped following and crouched low. Timon realized it was about to leap. The distance between them was perfect for the creature's powerful legs to carry it forward in one massive jump. Tim spun around and ran for the cave entrance. Behind him, he heard the beast roar and the sound of claws scraping against stone as it launched itself through the air. He dove through the cave opening just as the beast landed where he had been standing. The creature's claws scraped against the stone entrance, sending up sparks and chips of rock, but the cave entrance was just slightly too small for the beast's full height. It had to crouch down to follow him inside, which slowed it down and put it off balance. This was exactly what Timon had been counting on. Inside the cave, everything changed. The beast's advantages, its size, strength, and reach, became problems in the confined space. It could not move as quickly or turn as easily, but it could still kill him if he made any mistakes. The cave was dark, but not completely black. Light from the arena filtered in through the entrance, creating shifting shadows on the rough walls. Timon had explored this cave thoroughly during his preparation time. He knew every twist and turn, every loose rock and narrow passage. The beast did not know the cave at all. Tim moved deeper into the darkness, feeling his way along walls he had memorized. Behind him, he could hear the beast struggling to follow. Its larger size meant it had to squeeze through spaces that were easy for him to navigate, but he was not just running away. Every step was taking him toward the place where he would make his final stand. The beast thought it was chasing cornered prey, but it was actually walking into the most sophisticated trap Timon had prepared. The sound of their movement echoed strangely in the cave's depths. To the watching aliens in the gallery above, it must have seemed like both hunter and prey had simply vanished into the earth itself. Deep inside the cave, Timon moved through darkness he had memorized. His hands traced along walls he had explored during preparation, feeling for the specific landmarks that told him exactly where he was. The beast crashed through the narrow passages behind him, making enough noise to wake the dead, but that noise was exactly what Timon wanted. His Aunt Bei Jiong had spent hours teaching him about sound waves when he was young, how they bounced off surfaces, how they could be focused and directed, how the shape of a space could change everything about how sound behaved. This cave was shaped like a funnel that twisted back on itself, creating acoustic effects that most people could never imagine. Timon reached the place he had been heading for, a circular chamber deep in the cave where 5 tunnels met. He had discovered this chamber during his exploration and immediately understood its potential. The walls were smooth and curved in a way that created perfect sound amplification. He stopped in the center of the chamber and listened. The beast was still coming, but it had slowed down. The narrow passages were forcing it to squeeze through spaces barely large enough for its massive body. It was getting frustrated and angry. Exactly as planned, when the beast finally emerged into the chamber, Timon was ready. He made the hunting call his grandfather had taught him, but this time he did it properly. His voice filled the chamber, and the sound waves hit the curved walls at exactly the right angles. The call bounced back and forth, growing louder with each reflection until it seemed like 100 voices were calling at once. The beast stopped moving and shook its massive head. The amplified sound was painful to its sensitive ears. But Timon was not finished. He began moving around the chamber while making different sounds. Not random noises, but specific calls and whistles that his family had taught him over the years. Each sound hit the walls at a different angle and created a different effect. The hunting whistle became a shriek that seemed to come from above. The mountain call turned into an echo that circled the chamber like something flying around the walls. A simple hand clap became thunder that went on and on. To the beast, it must have sounded like it was surrounded by a pack of invisible creatures, all making threatening sounds. But because of the way the chamber was shaped, it could not tell where any of the sounds were actually coming from. The beast began turning in circles again. but this time in a space too small for easy movement. It bumped into walls and stumbled over loose rocks. The combination of acoustic confusion and physical disorientation was breaking down its ability to think clearly. Timon had learned from his grandmother that even the smartest predator could be overwhelmed if you attacked its senses properly. Bears were intelligent and dangerous, but if you confused their hearing and sight at the same time, they became manageable. He threw a stone at the wall behind the beast. In the chamber's acoustics, the impact sounded like a massive boulder falling. The beast spun toward the sound but saw nothing there. Before it could process this information, Timon threw another stone at a different wall. Each thrown stone created a different acoustic effect. Some sounded like explosions, others like the roar of falling water. One stone hit at just the right angle to create a sound like breaking glass that seemed to come from inside the beast's own head. The creature was now showing clear signs of panic. It was breathing heavily and making sounds of distress. Its head movements were becoming erratic, and it was having trouble maintaining its balance on the uneven cave floor, but Timon knew he had to be careful. A panicked predator was dangerous, in a different way than an angry one. It might do something completely unpredictable, like charge blindly in any direction. In the confined space of the chamber, there was nowhere to run if the beast decided to attack everything at once. He needed to guide the panic into something useful. Timon moved to the entrance of one specific tunnel, the one that led back toward the cave mouth, but by a different route than they had come in. This tunnel was narrower than the others and had several tight turns that would slow the beast down. From this position, he made a new sound. Not a hunting call or a whistle, but something his great-uncle Namjiho had taught him. It was the sound Korean fishermen made to drive fish into their nets, a rhythmic tapping combined with a low humming noise in the acoustic chamber. This sound became something extraordinary. The tapping echoed like a drum beat that seemed to come from the direction Timon wanted the beast to go. The humming became a low, threatening growl that seemed to come from behind the creature. The beast's response was exactly what Timon hoped for. Faced with threatening sounds from behind and neutral sounds from ahead, it chose to move forward. It squeezed into the tunnel Timon had selected and began making its way toward what it thought was safety. Timon followed at a careful distance. The beast was moving through the tunnel system exactly as he had planned, but he needed to maintain the acoustic pressure to keep it going in the right direction. He continued making sounds as they moved through the tunnels. Sometimes he would create an echo that seemed to be catching up from behind, encouraging the beast to move faster. Other times he would make sounds that seemed to come from side passages, discouraging the creature from taking wrong turns. It was exhausting work. Timon had to control his breathing, his movement, and his sound-making all at the same time while navigating through darkness. But his years of training with his family were paying off. Every lesson about patience, timing, and understanding animal behavior was coming together. The tunnel began to slope upward. They were getting close to another exit from the cave system, not the main entrance where they had come in, but a smaller opening that led to a different part of the rocky area. This was where Timon's most complex trap was waiting. He had spent most of his preparation time setting up this final surprise. It required precise timing and perfect positioning, but if it worked, the test would be over. Light began to filter down from ahead. The beast, seeing what looked like escape from the confusing tunnels, began moving faster. It was eager to get back to an environment where its size and strength would be advantages again. Timon smiled in the darkness. The beast thought it was escaping from a trap, but it was actually walking into the biggest one of all. The creature squeezed through the final narrow section and emerged into daylight. Timon heard its relieved roar echo across the arena as it found itself back in open space, but the roar cut off suddenly. Replaced by a different sound entirely, the trap had been triggered. The beast emerged from the cave exit directly into a carefully prepared killing ground. But Timon's trap was not the simple deadfall he had used before. This was something much more sophisticated, based on techniques his ancestors had used to hunt the largest and most dangerous animals. 3 medium-sized boulders hung from thick vines above the cave exit. When the beast's weight triggered the release mechanism, they swung down like massive pendulums. The first boulder struck the creature's left shoulder, spinning it around. The second hit its back leg, knocking it off balance. The third would have crushed its head, but the beast was smart enough to duck at the last second. Instead of killing the creature, the trap did exactly what Teeman had designed it to do. It injured the beast enough to slow it down, but not enough to end the fight. Quickly. A quick death would not prove what he needed to prove. The beast staggered away from the cave entrance, dark blue blood flowing from new wounds. It was hurt, confused, and angry, but still very much alive and dangerous. Its intelligence was now working against it as it tried to understand. What kind of prey could create such elaborate traps? Teeman emerged from a different cave opening 30 meters away. He had circled through the tunnel system while the beast was dealing with the swinging boulders. Now he stood in clear view, no longer hiding or running. This was the moment his grandmother Kim Simbach had prepared him for without either of them knowing it. All those days spent learning to track deer through mountain forests. All those lessons about reading animal behavior and understanding the rhythms of the hunt. Persistence hunting, she had called it. The old way. Before guns, before traps, before everything except the human mind and human endurance. The beast saw him and roared, but the sound was different now. Pain and exhaustion had changed its voice. It began moving toward him, but its gait was uneven. The injuries were affecting its coordination. Teeman started walking backward, maintaining a distance of about 20 meters. He was not running away this time. He was leading the beast on a specific path through the arena, controlling the pace and direction of their movement. His great-uncle Nam Jiho had told him stories about the old Korean hunters who could chase deer for hours until the animals simply collapsed from exhaustion. Humans were not the fastest or strongest predators, but they had something unique. The ability to keep going long after other animals gave up. The beast followed him across the open grassland in the center of the arena. With each step, Teeman could see it getting weaker. The combination of blood loss, confusion, and constant movement was draining its energy. But he had to be careful not to let it get too close. Even injured, it could still kill him with one swipe of those massive claws. When the beast tried to charge, Teeman would throw a stone with his sling. Not trying to cause serious damage, but aiming for sensitive spots that would make the creature hesitate. A stone to the nose made it shake its head and pause. A stone to an injured area made it stumble and slow down. Through the arena walls, he could see that his was now the only active test remaining. All the other cadets had either failed or succeeded quickly. The viewing gallery was packed with aliens, watching his methodical wearing down of the massive predator. One of the military observers was making rapid notes on an electronic device. Teeman could see excitement in the aliens' body language. They were witnessing something they had never seen before, a hunting technique that did not rely on advanced technology or overwhelming force. The beast tried a different strategy, attempting to circle around and attack from the side. But Teeman had anticipated this. He led it toward a section of the arena where loose rocks and uneven ground would slow it down while giving him stable footing for accurate stone throwing. Each stone from his sling hit exactly where he aimed it. His grandmother had made him practice for hours every day until he could hit a target the size of his fist from 50 meters away. At 20 meters, he could place a stone anywhere he wanted. The beast's frustration was growing. It was used to prey that either ran in terror or fought back with predictable attacks. Teeman was doing neither. He stayed just out of reach while gradually wearing down its strength and will to fight. Blood loss was becoming a serious problem for the creature. The dark blue fluid dripped steadily from multiple wounds, leaving a trail across the arena floor. Its breathing was becoming labored and its movements less coordinated, but it was still dangerous. When Teeman led it past a fallen tree, the beast grabbed the massive trunk and hurled it at him like a spear. The tree missed by only a few meters and crashed into the ground. With enough force to shake the arena floor, Teeman adjusted his strategy. If the beast could still throw things accurately, he needed to be more careful about the terrain he chose. He led it away from areas with loose objects and toward the rocky slopes. Where everything was too heavy to move, the chase continued for what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes. The beast's charge became a fast walk, then a determined trudge, then something that was barely faster than Timon's backward walking pace. Its roars had become labored breathing. Its coordinated attacks had become desperate swipes that missed their target by increasing distances. The intelligence in its eyes was being replaced by the simple desire to lie down and rest. This was what his ancestors had understood about hunting the largest predators. You did not need to be stronger or faster than your prey. You just needed to outlast it, but Timon knew the most dangerous moment was still coming. A cornered predator, even an exhausted one, could still kill in its final moments. He needed to end this properly. With respect for the creature's strength and acknowledgement of its courage, the beast stumbled and almost fell, catching itself with one massive hand. Dark blue blood pooled on the ground beneath it. Its head hung low, and its breathing came in ragged gasps. It was time for the final phase of the hunt. Tam. I stopped moving backward and stood still. The beast looked up at him, and for a moment, their eyes met again. But this time, the intelligence he saw there was different. It was the look of a proud predator that knew it had been defeated by a worthy opponent. The creature made one last attempt to reach him, taking 3 stumbling steps forward before its legs gave out completely. It crashed to the ground with a sound like falling timber, but it was not dead yet. It lay there breathing heavily, its eyes still fixed on Timon, waiting to see what would happen next. Timon walked slowly toward the fallen beast, pulling one final stone from the cord around his neck. This stone was different from the others, larger, heavier, and shaped perfectly for what he needed to do. Timon approached the fallen beast with careful steps. The creature was down but not helpless. Even exhausted and bleeding, it could still lash out with deadly force if he made a mistake. Its eyes tracked his movement, and its claws flexed against the ground. The large stone in his hand was special. He had chosen it during his initial exploration of the arena because of its perfect weight and shape. His grandmother had taught him that the final moment of any hunt required both precision and respect. The prey had fought bravely and deserved an honorable end, but as he got closer, the beast surprised him one last time. With a sound like breaking thunder, it rolled onto its side and swept one massive arm across the ground where Timon had been about to step. If he had continued moving forward, the claws would have cut him in half. Instead, he jumped backward just in time. The beast's intelligence had not been completely overcome by exhaustion. It was still thinking, still planning, still dangerous. Timon realized he needed a different approach. Getting close enough to use the stone would be too risky while the creature still had enough strength to move its arms. He needed to wait longer or find another way to end this safely. The viewing gallery above was completely silent now. Every alien observer was watching the final moments of the hunt. Through the arena walls, Timon could see that Jiwan had also completed her test successfully. Her beast lay motionless in her arena, apparently defeated through her own version of persistence hunting, but his test was not over yet. The beast tried to rise to its feet, pushing against the ground with both arms. For a moment it looked like it might actually stand up again. Dark blue blood flowed faster from its wounds with the effort, but its determination was incredible. Timon made a decision that would have shocked most of the watching aliens. Instead of moving farther away from the dangerous creature, he sat down on a rock about 10 meters away and waited. His great-uncle, Nam Jiho, had told him about this moment in the old hunts. When a great predator was dying, the respectful thing to do was give it time to die with dignity. Rushing the final blow showed disrespect for the creature's courage. The beast managed to get its front legs under its body and raised its head to look at him. For several long minutes, they regarded each other across the arena floor. The hunter and the hunted, each acknowledging the other's strength. Gradually, the beast's efforts to stand became weaker. Its breathing slowed and deepened. The flow of blood from its wounds began to slow as its heart struggled to pump through damaged vessels, but its eyes remained alert and focused on Timon. Even in its final moments, it was still thinking, still trying to understand what had happened to it. This creature had probably never been defeated before. The experience of losing was as alien to it as its appearance was to Timon. Then something unexpected happened. The beast made a sound that was completely different from its previous roars and growls. It was a low, musical note that seemed to come from deep in its chest. The sound had an almost peaceful quality, like a sad song. In the viewing gallery, Timon saw one of the alien observers react strongly to this sound. The tree-like being was gesturing excitedly and making rapid notes. Apparently, this behavior from a Gravik beast was unusual and significant. The musical note faded away, and the beast's breathing became even slower. Its massive head began to lower toward the ground. The fight was leaving its body as blood loss and exhaustion finally overcame its will to continue. Now was the time. Taemin stood up and walked slowly toward the beast. This time it did not try to attack. Its claws remained flat against the ground, and its eyes, while still watching him, showed acceptance rather than hostility. When he was close enough, Timon knelt beside the great creature's head. The beast's eye, larger than his fist, looked at him with what seemed almost like curiosity, as if it wanted to understand this small predator that had defeated it through methods it had never encountered before. "You fought well," Timon said quietly in Korean. He doubted the beast understood the words, but he hoped it might understand the tone of respect in his voice. The beast made the musical sound again, softer this time. Then its eye closed. Timon waited for several minutes to be sure, then stood up. The test was over. He had accomplished something that most of the galaxy's species would have considered impossible: defeating a Gravik beast using nothing but primitive weapons and ancient hunting techniques. The silence in the viewing gallery broke as aliens began making excited sounds to each other. Clicking, whistling, and electronic beeping filled the air as they processed what they had witnessed. A voice echoed through the arena speakers. It was Examiner Zix9, the crystalline being who had explained the test. "Cadet Lee Timon of Earth, you have successfully completed the examination. Remain in position for extraction." The same beam of light that had brought him to the arena surrounded Timon. He felt the familiar tingling sensation as the transport system activated. But before the arena disappeared around him, he looked back. One more time at the fallen beast. Had been a worthy opponent. His ancestors would have honored such a creature with ceremonies and songs. The least he could do was remember it with respect. The light faded, and Timon found himself back in the Academy's main hall. But it was different now. The space was filled with alien beings he had not seen before: military officers, scientists, and other important-looking individuals. All of them were staring at him with expressions that were hard to read on their alien faces. Jiwan was there too, looking tired but victorious. She nodded to him with a warrior's respect. Cho Minho was not present, which meant his technological approach had failed. Examiner Zix9 moved toward them with movements that somehow seemed more respectful than before. "Cadets of Earth," it said, "you have demonstrated capabilities that our models did not predict. We must reassess our understanding of human potential." An alien in what was clearly a military uniform stepped forward. Its voice was like grinding stones when it spoke. "I am Admiral Corinth of the Velthari Defense Fleet. Your performance today has implications beyond a simple academy test. We need to talk." Timon exchanged a glance with Jiwan. Whatever they had accomplished in those arenas had apparently changed something important. The way the aliens were looking at them suggested that humanity's place in the galactic community might be very different from what anyone had expected. But first, he needed food, rest, and time to process what had just happened. Defeating the beast had required everything his family had taught him over the years. Now it seemed like those old lessons might have value far beyond what his grandmother could have imagined when she first showed him how to make a sling from plant fibers. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they combined ancient wisdom with modern determination. 3 months had passed since the test with the Gravik beast. Timon stood in front of a classroom filled with alien cadets, holding a simple leather sling in his hands. The students came from 12 different worlds, and all of them were staring. at the primitive weapon with expressions of confusion. "Who can tell me," Timon said in the common galactic language, "what the most important part of this weapon is?" A cadet with blue skin and 4 arms raised one hand. "The projectile?" it asked in a voice like musical chimes. "Good guess, but no." Timon smiled and walked closer to the student. "Anyone else?" A crystalline being similar to Examiner Zix-9 spoke up. "The leather pouch that holds the stone?" "Also wrong." Timon held up the sling so everyone could see it clearly. "The most important part is the person using it. Without understanding, patience, and practice, this is just pieces of cloth and leather. With those things, it becomes a weapon that can bring down creatures 50 times your size." The alien students made various sounds of skepticism. They came from civilizations that had used energy weapons for thousands of years. The idea that a primitive tool could be more effective than their technology was difficult for them to accept, but they were learning. Timon had been promoted to instructor immediately after his test results were analyzed. The galactic military had realized that human tactical thinking represented something completely missing from their doctrine. Most alien species had become so dependent on advanced technology that they had forgotten how to improvise and adapt. "Today we will practice basic accuracy," Timon announced. "But first, let me tell you why this matters." He gestured to a wall screen that showed star charts and tactical reports. 3 weeks ago, the Zephyrian Third Fleet encountered an enemy that could disable all their electronic systems. Ships worth billions of credits became floating metal shells in space. Hundreds of crew members died because they had no backup plans. The blue-skinned cadet raised its hand again. "But, instructor, how would primitive weapons help in space combat?" "Wrong question," Timon replied. "The right question is, how do you think when your primary tools fail? The Zephyrians lost because they could not adapt. They waited for their technology to be repaired instead of finding other solutions." He walked to the weapons rack and picked up an energy rifle. "This weapon can fire 1,000 shots and hit targets at extreme range." "Very impressive. But what happens when the power cell dies and you have no replacement?" The crystalline student's body flickered with internal light. "You use a backup weapon system? And when that fails too?" Timon set down the energy rifle and picked up his sling again. "This weapon has no power cell, no electronic components, no complex manufacturing requirements. It can be made from materials found almost anywhere, and it will work exactly the same way 1,000 years from now." He loaded a smooth stone into the sling and spun it slowly. "More importantly, learning to use this teaches you to think differently. You learn to read wind patterns, judge distances by eye, and understand how your target will move. These skills apply to any weapon and any situation." The classroom door opened and Admiral Corinth entered. The massive alien's stone-like features showed what might have been approval as it observed the lesson. "Instructor Lee," the Admiral said, "I apologize for interrupting, but we have received new intelligence about the Silent Ones." Timon felt his heart rate increase. The Silent Ones were the mysterious enemy that had been attacking ships throughout the galaxy. They had the ability to disable all electronic systems, leaving their victims helpless. 3 major battles had been lost to them, and no one understood how they operated. "Class dismissed for today," Timon announced. "Practice the accuracy exercises we covered. Remember, it is not about strength, it is about understanding the physics of motion." The alien students filed out, many of them still looking skeptical about the primitive weapons training. But some were beginning to understand. A few had even started asking questions about other low-tech survival techniques when they were alone. Admiral Corinth activated a privacy screen around them. The Silent Ones have struck again. This time they attacked the Mindari research station at Kepler 9, completely disabled all systems and captured the entire facility. Timon frowned. The Mindari were telepaths with some of the most advanced mental technologies in the galaxy. If the Silent Ones could defeat them, the threat was even worse than anyone had realized. "What do we know about their methods?" he asked. "Very little. They appear disable everything electronic within a large radius, then either destroy their targets or capture them. No survivors, no witnesses, no recovered technology. The Admiral's rocky features shifted in what might have been frustration. Our conventional forces are useless against them. But you think humans might be different? I think humans are the only species that still remember how to fight without technology. Admiral Corinth moved to the window that looked out over the Academy's training grounds. Every other civilization in the galaxy has become dependent on electronic systems. If those systems fail, they are helpless. Timon joined the Admiral at the window. Below them, Jiwan was leading a group of alien cadets through basic hand-to-hand combat training. Like him, she had been promoted to instructor, after demonstrating that humans had skills the galaxy needed. "What are you proposing?" Timon asked. "A special mission. A ship with minimal electronic systems, crewed by humans and a few volunteers from other species. Your job would be to investigate a Silent One's attack site and gather intelligence." How? Minimal is minimal? Basic life support, primitive engines, no computers, no energy weapons. Everything would have to be operated manually. Admiral Corinth turned to face him. It would be extremely dangerous. If the Silent Ones are still in the area, you would have to survive using only the techniques you learned on Earth. Timon thought about his grandmother Kim Sunbok, who had taught him that humans survived by adapting to any situation. About his grandfather Huang Dongsu, who believed that intelligence and courage could overcome any obstacle. About all the generations of his family who had faced impossible odds and found ways to win. "When do we leave?" he asked. Admiral Corinth made a sound that might have been relieved laughter. "The ship is being prepared now. You can select your own team, but remember, no one with heavy dependence on technology. The mission requires people who can think and act without electronic assistance. I know exactly who to choose." 3 days later, Timon stood on the bridge of the most primitive starship he had ever seen. The controls were all mechanical switches and dials. Navigation was done with star charts and manual calculations. The weapons were simple chemical rockets that had to be aimed by eye. Jiwan was his second in command, along with 5 other humans who had grown up in rural areas where old skills were still practiced. They were joined by 3 alien volunteers, a Velthari engineer who specialized in mechanical systems, a Gorlan warrior who fought with blade weapons, and surprisingly, one of the Mindari telepaths who had survived the attack on Kepler 9. The survivor remembers very little, the Mindari, whose name was Kexra, explained. But I sense that the Silent Ones are not what they appear to be. There is something familiar about their mental signature. "Familiar how?" Jiwan asked from the pilot's seat. She was flying the ship using instruments that would have been considered ancient on Earth a century ago. I cannot explain it clearly. But I do not think they are an alien species at all. I think they might be something we created ourselves. Timon felt a chill run down his spine. If the Silent Ones were artificial intelligences or robots that had turned against their creators, it would explain their ability to disable electronic systems. They might be using some kind of virus or override code. Approaching the attack site, Jiwan announced, all systems showing normal. No electronic interference detected. Through the viewports, they could see the wreckage of a Zephyrian convoy floating in space. 3 massive transport ships hung dark and lifeless among the stars. There were no signs of the attacking force. "Take us in slowly," Timon ordered. "Everyone stay alert. If their electronic warfare works on our ship, we switch to manual controls." For everything. But as they approached the wreckage, Timon realized they had an advantage the Silent Ones probably did not expect. This ship was so primitive that there was almost nothing electronic to disable, even if their enemies tried to attack the ship's systems. Most of the important functions could be operated by hand. "Life signs detected on the second transport," Kexra reported, using a purely mechanical sensor array. "Faint, but definitely there. Survivors?" Jiwan asked. Maybe a trap." Timon made his decision. "Dock with the transport. We go aboard and investigate. But we do this the old way, assume everything is hostile until proven otherwise." As their ship connected with the disabled transport, Tiemann checked his equipment one final time. No energy weapons, no electronic devices, nothing that could be turned against them. Just the tools his ancestors had used to survive in a dangerous world: rocks, ropes, and sharp metal. Simple things that worked the same way they had for thousands of years. It was time to show the galaxy that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The airlock opened, and Tiemann led his team into the dark corridors of the dead ship. Behind them, the